For centuries, we've been taught to read the sacred text as history, as external events, as something that happened somewhere else, to someone else. But what if that was never the intention? What if these words were not written to describe the outside world, but to reveal the one within you? Because Jesus Christ says, the kingdom of God is within you. Other translations say the kingdom of heaven is within you. Paul the apostle says, Christ in you, the hope of glory. And the Quran declares, God is closer to us than our jugular vein. So maybe we've been looking in the wrong direction. Maybe the story was never meant to be observed, but to be realized. Maybe creation is not just something that happened, but something that is happening within you. So today, we are not approaching Genesis 1 as history. We are approaching it as revelation. We are going to read it again, not outwardly, but inwardly. And as we do, watch what begins to shift. Because when you read the word from within, it stops being a story and starts becoming an experience. So let's begin with Genesis 1 verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. When we see God in the Bible, many people imagine a distant being, somewhere outside, separate from us. But let's go deeper. God represents the source, the origin of awareness, the intelligence behind life, the governing principle of existence. In the Quran, this same source is referred to as Allah, not as a separate tribal name, but as the one, the origin of all. God is not a character in the story. God is the source from which the story is being seen. In everyday life, when you become aware, when you gain understanding, when you see clearly, you are experiencing the activity of source within you. Now, this is where everything shifts. Because created is often read as something made once in the past. But let's go deeper. Created means to bring into awareness, to form perception, to make visible what was unseen. Creation is not just physical, creation is perceptual. What this means: in the beginning, God created becomes At the moment awareness began, source brought perception into form. Think about it. Before you understand something, it doesn't exist for you. The moment you understand it, it becomes real in your world. That is creation in real time. Creation is not just something that happened. It is something happening every time awareness expands. And this is why the next verse says, the earth was without form. Because before clarity comes, awareness is still forming. Genesis 1 is not just telling you how the world began, it is showing you how understanding begins. When we understand what heaven really is, everything Jesus said, everything Paul said, and even what the Quran says begins to align. What did Jesus say? The kingdom of God or heaven is within you. The kingdom is not a place you go to. It is a state you awaken to. It is awareness, alignment, and clarity. That is heaven within. Then Paul the apostle says, Christ in you, the hope of glory. What does that mean? Not Christ outside you. Christ as a living reality within you. Your awareness, your identity, and your alignment with truth. And then the Quran says, we are closer to him than his jugular vein. This is God speaking here. And the verse is Surah 50, verse 16. That's not distant language. That's intimacy. That's nearness. That's withinness. Now watch the pattern. Jesus says the kingdom is within you. Paul says Christ in you. The Quran says closer than your jugular vein. These are not three different ideas. This is one truth spoken three ways. Heaven is not far. God is not distant. Truth is not outside of you. It is within you, waiting to be realized. What you are searching for is not somewhere else. It is something awakening within you. This is why when you gain clarity, life changes. When you awaken, everything shifts. When you see clearly, you begin to live differently, because heaven was never the destination. It was always the dimension within you. So now, when you read Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. You understand, heaven is not above you. It is awakening within you. Next verse, Genesis 1:2. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So we're going to look at this symbolically, okay? Because both texts are communicating symbolically. So we're going to look at the word symbolically. Let's start with without form. Without form means no structure, no direction. Void means emptiness or lack of meaning. In real life, this is the moment where a person says, I don't know my purpose in life. Life feels meaningless. I'm just existing. This is not failure. This is the beginning of awakening. Before your life takes shape, it will feel like it has none. Next phrase, darkness was upon the face of the deep. Darkness here is lack of awareness. Deep is the subconscious, the unseen inner world. The deep is your inner thoughts, your emotions, your hidden patterns. And darkness covering it means you don't yet understand yourself. The Quran also describes people as being in darkness upon darkness until light comes. The deep is not scary. It is simply the part of you you haven't understood yet. Next line, and the Spirit of God moved. Family, if our life comes from the source, if our life comes from God, then what Genesis calls the Spirit of God moving can be understood as life itself in motion within us. Remember, Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. Paul says, Christ in you, the hope of glory. So the Spirit of God moving can be understood as life itself in motion within us. But let's keep it balanced and clear. You are not the source itself, okay? But your life is sustained by the source. The Spirit of God moving means the activity of life, awareness, and breath within you. Genesis 1:2 says, Spirit moving. Jesus says, the kingdom is within you. Paul says, Christ in you. The Quran says, closer than your jugular vein. These are all pointing to life is not distant from source. It is sustained by it, moment by moment. The same power that created life is the same power sustaining your breath right now. Your heart beating, your mind thinking, your awareness observing, that movement, that aliveness, that's what Genesis 1 is describing. The Spirit of God moving is the life within you continuing. Before you found your purpose, before you found clarity, something was already moving within you, keeping you alive, keeping you searching, keeping you going. So even in your most confusing season, you were never empty. You were being carried. Genesis 1 is not starting with perfection. It is starting with the process. The deep is the unknown, the inner world, the place of transformation. Every awakening begins in the deep before it ever reaches the light. The deep is that season where nothing makes sense, where you feel lost, where you feel disconnected, where you are questioning everything. That is not the end. That is the beginning. The place you try to avoid is often the place where you are transformed. Next verse, Genesis 1:3, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God said, it's not about vocal sound. It represents the expression of truth, a realization, an inner knowing, a moment of clarity. After the deep, after the darkness, after the confusion, something within you speaks, not externally, but internally. Transformation begins the moment truth is recognized within. Let there be light. What is light? This is not physical light. This is awareness, understanding, clarity, and revelation. This is the moment where things begin to make sense, where confusion starts to lift, where direction begins to form. This is that click moment. Light is not something you find. It is something that turns on within you. Next line, and there was light. Notice there is no delay. The moment light is introduced, darkness loses its hold. Understanding changes everything instantly. One realization can change your entire path. One moment of clarity can shift your whole life. That's the power of light. The Quran also speaks of being brought from darkness into light. Jesus says, I am the light of the world, not as a person to follow externally, but as a principle of awakening. The moment you see, you are no longer in the same darkness. That moment where you understand your purpose in life, where you see your path, where something finally makes sense, that is your let there be light. Genesis is not just telling you what God said. It is showing you what happens when you finally see. Because after the deep, light always comes. We've all had that moment. That moment where something finally clicks. And with excitement, you say, I've found it. Now I understand. This is what I'm meant to do. For some of you, it didn't come easy. You had to go through confusion, trial and error, and seasons of uncertainty. But those moments weren't wasted. They were shaping you. Because ask yourself, how would you know you have the capacity to be a business owner, to be a freelancer, to be an accountant, to be a baker, to be a builder, if you never went through the process that revealed it? And then one day, the light turned on. And when it did, everything made sense to you. Direction became clear. Your path became visible. And you didn't have to force it. You just stepped into it. That moment, that is let there be light, and there was light. Not outside of you, within you. And now you wake up with purpose. You move with clarity. Your life feels full. Your life feels aligned. Not because everything is perfect, but because you see clearly. Fulfillment doesn't come from doing more. It comes from finally seeing what you were meant to do. The moment the light turns on in you, you don't just find your path, you become it. So now the question is not, does light come? Because it always does. The question is, what will you do when it does? Next line, Genesis 1:4. And God saw the light that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. God saw the light. If God represents truth, ultimate reality, the source, then God saw the light equals truth within you, recognizing truth. This is the moment where clarity is no longer temporary, where understanding is no longer confusing, where you know what is right, not because someone told you, but because you see it for yourself. When truth awakens in you, it recognizes itself. Next line, that it was good. What does good mean? Not moral approval, alignment. It was good means it fits. It makes sense. It brings peace. This is when your path feels right. When your decisions feel aligned. When confusion disappears. You are no longer second guessing everything. Good is not about perfection, it's about alignment. Next, divided the light from the darkness. This is huge. This is discernment. The ability to separate truth from illusion. Clarity from confusion. Alignment from distraction. Before this moment, everything feels mixed. After this moment, you can clearly see the difference. You recognize what no longer serves you. You stop entertaining confusion. You stop going back to what you've outgrown. Why? Because now you can tell the difference. If God represents truth, then when truth awakens in you, you begin to see clearly what is good, what is aligned. And that is the moment light is divided from darkness. Now look at the flow. Genesis 1 verse 2, we see confusion, darkness, the deep. Genesis 1 verse 3, light appears, which is clarity. Genesis 1 verse 4, light is separated, which is discernment. Awakening is not just seeing, it is learning to distinguish. The Quran constantly calls people to reflect, discern, and recognize truth. Not just receive information, but see clearly. Light doesn't just reveal, it separates. Family. The moment you can see clearly, you can never go back to not seeing. Because once light is separated from darkness, confusion loses its power. I've seen this in real life. People who had good paying jobs, stability, everything that looked right on the outside. And yet, something didn't feel aligned within. So they made a decision that didn't make sense to everyone else. What was that? They walked away. Some became entrepreneurs. Some pursued creative paths. Some started over completely. And yes, sometimes the salary was lower. But here is what changed. They had peace. They had clarity. They had alignment. That is Genesis 1 verse 4 in real time. God saw the light that it was good. They saw something, not with their eyes, but within. And once they saw it was good, which is aligned, they made a separation and divided the light from the darkness. They separated what looks good from what is good for them. They chose peace over pressure, purpose over possessions, alignment over appearance. When you truly see what is good, you stop settling for what only looks good. Why this matters? Because before light is divided, everything feels mixed. Money versus meaning. Success versus fulfillment. Security versus peace. But after light is divided, you can't confuse the two anymore. And this is why some people can't go back to their old life. Not because they can't, but because they can see too clearly now. When light separates from darkness, your choices begin to reflect what you now understand. So now, as we move forward, we are going to see what happens next. Because once light is separated, a new rhythm begins. Genesis 1:5, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. God called the light day. Day represents clarity, awareness, understanding, and visibility, not a 24-hour period. This is when things make sense to you. When you feel aligned, when you can see clearly. In real life, your day seasons are when you feel confident, when your purpose is clear, when your path feels right. Day is not about time, it's about clarity. Next, the darkness he called night. Ninth represents reflection, processing, uncertainty, and hidden growth. This is when things feel unclear again. When you are questioning, when you are learning at a deeper level. In real life, even after clarity, you will still have moments where you don't fully understand everything, where you need to process what you've learned. That is not regression. That is integration. Night is not the absence of growth. It is where growth is processed. And notice the order. Evening comes first, then morning. Darkness comes before clarity. Confusion first, then understanding. Questioning, then answers. Uncertainty, then direction. This is the natural order of awakening. Clarity is born out of what you were once confused about. Now let's look at the first day. What is a day? A day is not a 24-hour period. It is a cycle of awakening. A day is moving from darkness to light, from confusion to clarity. In everyday life, you don't awaken once. You awaken in cycles. New level to new questions. New clarity to new depth. That's your day's unfolding. Now look at the journey. Genesis 1:2, darkness, deep confusion. 1:3, light appears. 1:4, light separated. 1:5, cycles begin. Awakening is not a moment. It is a rhythm. The Quran frequently speaks of night and day as signs, not just time, but cycles of reflection and awareness. Next verse. Genesis 1:6, and God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Waters represent thoughts, emotions, inner movement, mental and emotional flow. In Genesis 1:2, everything was mixed together. Your feelings, your thoughts, your fears, your desires. No separation, no clarity. Let there be a firmament. Firmament equals structure, boundary, separation, and awareness that distinguishes. This is the moment where you stop being overwhelmed by everything you feel and think, and you begin to separate and understand it. Before this firmament stage, everything feels like one big emotional wave. You react to everything. You feel everything all at once. After the firmament stage, you begin to say, this is a thought, not reality. This is a feeling, not truth. This is fear, not direction. The firmament is the awareness that separates what you feel from what is true. Next line, divide the waters from the waters. Not water from land, water from water. Meaning, not all thoughts are the same. Not all emotions are the same. Some are reactive, fear-based, and conditioned. Others are clear, aligned, and grounded. And now you can tell the difference. The two types of waters. First is the lower waters. Emotional reactions, fear, anxiety, external influence. The higher waters, intuition, clarity, wisdom, and inner knowing. Before the firmament, everything is mixed. After the firmament, there is discernment within your inner world. Not everything you feel is truth. And not everything you think is direction. Now look at the progression. Genesis 1:2, everything is chaotic. 1:3, light appears. 1:4, light is separated. 1:5, cycles begin. 1:6, inner structure is formed. Awakening is now becoming stable. The Quran also speaks of signs in creation and layers of heavens. This reflects levels of awareness. This is when you stop reacting emotionally to everything. When you stop believing every thought. When you start observing yourself. You gain inner control. Genesis 1:6 is not about the sky. It is about your inner structure forming. Because before you can build your life, you must organize your inner world. Genesis 1:7, and God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. In verse 6, the firmament was spoken. Now in verse 7, it is established. This is the shift from awareness to embodiment. Before, you understand truth. Now, you live from it. At first, you try not to react. You try to stay calm. Now, it becomes natural. You don't have to force peace anymore. You are at peace. What was once effort becomes identity. Next, waters under versus waters above. Now the separation is firm. Waters below, emotional reactions, fear, insecurity, and external opinions. Waters above, clarity, truth, discernment, and inner knowing. Now they are no longer mixed. You no longer confuse how you feel with what is true. Growth is when your emotions no longer override your understanding. Next line, and it was so. This means it is established. It is consistent. It is no longer temporary. This is when your peace is not occasional. When your clarity is not unstable. When your identity is not easily shaken. It is now your state of being. Before, when people say things, you react. You feel triggered. You take it personally. Now you hear it and it doesn't move you. You say, that's not who I am. That doesn't define me, and you let it pass. That is God made the firmament and it was so. Your inner boundary is now established. Genesis 1:7 is not just about separation. It is about stability. Because it's one thing to see clearly and another thing to remain clear. True growth is not what you understand once. It is what you consistently live from. Ask yourself, what used to trigger me that no longer does? What truth have I now stabilized in my life? Where has peace become natural for me? If you notice that things that once disturbed you no longer do, don't overlook it. That is not coincidence. That is transformation becoming permanent. Next verse. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. God called the firmament heaven. We've already seen Firmament represents the inner structure, boundary, and stability. Separation is discernment within. Now, this verse says it is called heaven. This means what has formed within you is now recognized as a higher state of awareness. Heaven here is not a place far away. It is a state of inner order, a level of awareness, a position of clarity and stability. And that is why Jesus will say, the kingdom of God or heaven is within you. This is when your mind is no longer chaotic. When your emotions are no longer controlling you. When your thoughts are no longer confusing you. You have inner space now. Heaven is what your inner world becomes when it is no longer in chaos. In Genesis 1:2, we see confusion, darkness, everything mixed. Now we see structure, clarity, separation, stability. That is heaven. Next line says, God called. To call or name something means to recognize it, to become aware of what it is. This is when you can say, I understand myself now. I know how I operate. I see clearly. You can now identify your state. You can't name what you haven't understood. And you can't understand what you haven't seen clearly. The second day, what is different? The first day, light appeared. In the second day, structure is formed and recognized. Awakening is not one moment. It happens in stages. This is when you understand your emotions. When you understand your patterns. When you understand your boundaries. You are no longer just aware. You are structured in your awareness. Let's see the flow. Genesis 1:2, chaos. 1:3, light. 1:4, discernment. 1:5, cycles. 1:6, separation begins. 1:7, separation stabilizes. 1:8, identity of that state is recognized. You now know where you stand. The Quran also speaks of multiple heavens, which are levels of awareness and understanding. Heaven is not somewhere you go. It is something your inner world becomes. Ask yourself, what has become clear and stable within me? What can I now name that I couldn't before? What has shifted from chaos to clarity in my life? Genesis 1:8 is not about the sky. It is about your inner world becoming ordered and recognized. Because once you have structure within, you begin to live from a higher place. So as you grow, pay attention to what you can now name. Because what you can name, you have already begun to understand. Next line, Genesis 1:9. And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. In the Quran, Surah 21 verse 30 says, have those who disbelieve not considered that the heavens and the earth were a joined entity, and we separated them and made from every water every living thing? Then would they not believe? Waters gathered together. Waters, as we've established, represents thoughts, emotions, and inner movement. Before this moment, everything is scattered. Too many thoughts, too many feelings, no direction. Now the waters are gathered. This means focus, alignment, and internal order. This is when your mind stops being all over the place, where your emotions stop controlling you, where your energy becomes centered. Growth begins when your inner world stops being scattered. Let the dry land appear. Dry land represents stability, identity, foundation, something you can stand on. Before this, you are floating emotionally and mentally. Now you have ground. This is when you know who you are. When you know your direction in life. When you feel stable within yourself. You are no longer easily shaken. When your inner world becomes ordered, your identity becomes visible. Next line, and it was so. Meaning it is established. It is no longer temporary. It is now your reality. This is when your clarity stays, when your direction remains, when your identity is consistent. Now look at the progression. Genesis 1:2, chaos. 1:3, light. 1:4, discernment. 6-7, inner separation. 1:8, awareness structured. 1:9, identity appears. You now have something to stand on. The Quran also emphasizes life comes from water, meaning from movement comes structure, from fluid comes form. Same pattern as Genesis. Before you can stand firm in life, your inner world must come into order. This is when someone says, I know who I am now. I know what I want. I'm not confused anymore. That is dry land appearing. Genesis 1:9 is not just about land appearing. It is about you becoming grounded. Because once you have ground, you can finally build your life. If you feel more stable than you used to, if you feel more clear than before, don't overlook it. That is not random. That is your foundation forming. And this verse mirrors the Red Sea moment. The Red Sea is not just a story. It's an experience we've all had. There comes a moment in your life where you know you need to leave something behind. A toxic environment, a draining relationship, a situation that no longer aligns. But then fear shows up. It starts whispering, what if you don't find something better out there? What if this doesn't work? What if you lose the comfort you have? And now you are standing right at the edge of your Red Sea. Behind you, what you've outgrown. In front of you, what you can't yet see. And in that moment, you have a decision to make. But something within you says, I can't stay here anymore. Enough is enough. And once your mind is made up, you move. Not because everything is clear, but because you've decided. What happens next? At first, it may feel uncomfortable. Things may be uncertain for a while. You may not have everything figured out. It may feel like you stepped into the unknown. But then, things begin to align. You find a job. You stabilize. You start figuring things out. Or maybe you start that business. And fear says, what if you fail? Are you sure you can do this? But again, you move. And over time, things begin to work out. But here's the key. The path didn't open first. You moved first. You have to move forward before the path opens. If you are waiting for everything to be clear, you may never move. But if you trust what you now see and take that step, the path will meet you there. So if you are standing at your Red Sea right now, don't let fear convince you to stay. Because what feels like an obstacle might actually be your opening. The moment you choose alignment, the way begins to reveal itself. Next verse, Genesis 1:10. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. Surah 21 verse 30 says, have those who disbelieve not considered that the heavens and the earth were a joint entity, and we separated them and made from every water every living thing? Then would they not believe? The pattern. In Genesis, land named, waters defined. In the Quran, seas distinguished, boundaries set. Separation is now clearly defined and understood. The dry land is now called earth. We saw in 1:9, dry land appeared. Now in 1:10, it is named. This is identity being recognized and owned. Before, you were becoming. You were discovering. Now you know who you are. This is when you say, this is who I am. This is my path. This is what I do. No confusion. No hesitation. Clarity becomes power the moment you can name it. The waters called seas. Waters are no longer chaotic. They are now contained and defined. This means your emotions and thoughts are no longer controlling you. They are understood, managed, and placed in their proper space. You feel, but you are not overwhelmed. You think, but you are not scattered. You respond instead of reacting. Peace is not the absence of emotion. It is emotion in its proper place. And God saw that it was good. This is reinforcement. Good equals alignment. And again, this is not saying you are God. It is saying truth within you recognizes what is aligned. This is when your life feels right. When your decisions feel grounded. When your path feels clear. You are no longer guessing. You now know who you are, where you stand, and how to move. The Quran also shows boundaries between waters, separation without confusion. This reflects emotional and mental order. The earth named. When you can name who you are, you stop being moved by what you are not. This is when someone says, I'm not going back to that life anymore. That's not who I am anymore. I've outgrown that version of myself. That is earth being named. Now ask yourself, what have I clearly defined in my life? What no longer has access to me? What can I now confidently say is me? Genesis 1:10 is not just about land and sea. It is about identity and boundaries fully established. Because once you know who you are, everything else falls into place. So don't rush this process. Because the moment you can name your ground is the moment you can stand on it. And this verse is so real when you experience it. Because there comes a point in your life where you finally know who you are. Before that moment, you were a people pleaser. You said yes when you meant no. You allowed things you didn't agree with. Not because you wanted to, but because you didn't yet know yourself. You were shaped by inherited ideas, doctrines, opinions, and expectations. Everything around you defined you. But then awareness came. And when it did, something changed. What used to happen? People crossed your boundaries. You stayed silent. You tolerated what drained you. Now you say no. That doesn't align with me. I don't allow that anymore. Not with anger, not with ego, but with clarity. That is God called the dry land earth. You are now named. You are now defined. You are now established. And then the waters called his seas. What once overwhelmed you is now contained. Before, everything had access to you. Now, not everything is allowed into your space. When you know who you are, you stop allowing what you are not. You didn't become difficult, you became defined. You didn't become distant, you became clear. You didn't lose people, you lost what no longer aligned. Family, boundaries are not rejection, they are recognition. Recognition of your value, your identity, and your alignment. So if you've reached a point where you no longer tolerate what you used to, where you no longer agree with what once shaped you, where you no longer allow certain things into your life, don't question it. That is not you changing randomly. That is you becoming who you truly are. The moment you name who you are, you naturally release what you are not. Next verse, Genesis 1:11. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after its kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. Surah 6 verse 99 also says, and it is he who sends down rain from the sky, and we bring forth thereby the growth of all things. We bring forth from its green rain, from which we produce grains arranged in layers, and from the date palm its emerging fruit, and gardens of grapevines, olives, and pomegranates, similar yet varied. The pattern. In Genesis, the earth brings forth fruit. In the Quran, earth produces growth, plants, and fruit. Once the ground is formed, it begins to produce. Let the earth bring forth. Earth, as we've seen, is your identity, your grounded self, your stable foundation. Now it brings forth. What is within you now begins to show outwardly. This is when your life starts reflecting your clarity. When your actions align with your identity. When results begin to appear. Not forced, but natural. What you have become will eventually be seen. Next line. Whose seed is in itself? Everything you produce comes from what is already within you, not from outside validation, not from external pressure, but from your inner alignment. Your mindset produces your outcomes. Your identity produces your lifestyle. Your clarity produces your decisions. The seed was always inside. You don't produce your purpose. You reveal what was already planted within you. Next line, after its kind. The law of consistency. Fruit reproduces what it is. What you consistently are is what your life will reflect. Clarity reflects clarity. Confusion reflects confusion. Peace reflects peace. Chaos reflects chaos. Your life mirrors your inner state. Your life cannot consistently produce what you are not. Now look at everything. Genesis 1:2 chaos, 1:3 light, 1:4 discernment, 5-7 separation, 1:8 structured awareness, 1:9 ground appears, 1:10 identity named, 1:11 results begin. This is the fruit of alignment. This is when your business starts growing, when your peace becomes visible, when your decisions bring results, when your life reflects your clarity. Not overnight, but naturally. Genesis 1:11 is showing you something powerful. You don't have to chase results. You have to become the person who produces them. When your identity is aligned, your life will begin to produce. Next verse. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Growth is no longer a promise. It is now visible. The earth brought forth. The earth, which is you, is now producing. Everything we've been building is now showing up in your life. Your mindset now visible. Your growth now visible. Your alignment now visible. This is when people begin to notice your change. Your life starts reflecting your decisions. Your results begin to speak, not just internally, externally. What was once internal is now undeniable. After his kind, again it repeats after its kind. What you've become is what you continue to produce. No confusion anymore. Clarity to consistent clarity. Peace to consistent peace. Discipline to consistent results. Your life now has a pattern. Your life will always reflect what you consistently are. Next line, seed was in itself. The source is still within. You are no longer dependent on external validation, external direction, external pressure. You are now self-sustained in alignment. You don't need constant motivation. You don't need constant approval, because your foundation is internal. When the seed is within you, you don't have to chase growth. Next line, God saw that it was good. Again, this is not saying you are God. It is saying, truth within you recognizes alignment. You now know this is right. This is working. This is aligned. No more doubt. You now have evidence of transformation. This is when your life looks different. When your results are consistent. When your peace is visible. When your growth is undeniable. You don't have to explain it. People can see it. Transformation is complete when it becomes visible. Genesis 1:12 is not just about plants growing. It is about your life becoming proof of what has happened within you. So, if you are starting to see results in your life, if things are beginning to align, if your growth is becoming visible, don't overlook it. That is your fruit. What you've been becoming, your life is now revealing. For instance, there was a time when you had anger issues, when you reacted quickly, when you got triggered easily. You didn't pause. You didn't reflect. You just reacted. But something changed. You made a decision. I'm going to work on myself. Not once, but consistently. At first, it wasn't perfect. It still slipped. You still reacted sometimes, but you stayed committed. And over time, something shifted. What people begin to see. Now, you don't get triggered like before. You pause before reacting. You listen before concluding. And the people who knew you before, they see it. They say you've changed. That is, and the earth brought forth. What was happening within you is now visible outside of you. Before, your anger controlled you. Now you understand it. You manage it. You respond with awareness. That is fruit. Growth is real when the people around you can see the difference. Next verse, Genesis 1:13. And the evening and the morning were the third day. Evening and morning. Evening represents darkness, uncertainty, processing. Morning represents clarity, understanding, light. Every stage of growth includes both confusion, then clarity, struggle, then understanding, process, then breakthrough. You didn't just wake up changed. You went through moments of frustration, moments of learning, moments of reflection before things became clear. Every clarity you have was born from a moment of confusion. The third day. What does this mean? It means this stage is complete. Everything from seed, growth, fruit is now established. This is when your growth is stable, when your identity is consistent, when your results are visible, not temporary anymore. Let's step back and see the full journey. Day 1, light appears, which is awareness. Day 2, separation forms, which is inner structure. Day 3, ground appears, which is identity to fruit to results. And now, day 3 is complete. Growth becomes real when it is no longer temporary but consistent. This is when your new habits stay, when your peace remains, when your reactions don't return. You are no longer going back and forth. You are established. Evening and morning shows you didn't skip the process. You went through it. And now it has produced something stable. Family, don't overlook your progress. Because what used to be hard, confusing, and inconsistent is now natural. So, if you've reached a place where your growth is steady, where your identity is clear, where your results are visible, don't rush ahead. Take a moment to recognize this stage is complete. What you stayed committed to has now become who you are. Next verse, Genesis 1 verse 14. And God said, let there be light in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years. In the Quran, Surah 10:5 says, it is he who made the sun a shining light, and the moon a derived light and determined for its phases, that you may know the number of years and account of time. The pattern. In Genesis, we see lights for signs, seasons, and direction. In the Quran, we see sun, moon, and stars for guidance and timing. Light is no longer just awareness, it becomes guidance. Lights in the firmament. Firmament, as we've seen, represents structured awareness. Now, lights appear within it. Once your inner world is stable, you begin to receive direction. This is when you know what to do next. You sense timing. You recognize opportunities. You are no longer guessing. Clarity evolves into direction. Next line, divide day from night. This is continued discernment. Now you can clearly distinguish when to act when to wait, when to move, and when to rest. You stop forcing things. You stop rushing decisions. And you begin to flow with timing. Wisdom is knowing not just what to do, but when to do it. Next line for signs. Signs equals indicators, confirmations, and guidance markers. Life begins to show you confirmations, patterns, and alignment signals. In real life, you start noticing things aligning, doors opening, clarity increasing. You are being guided. Next line, seasons, days, years. Life now has timing and rhythm. You understand, not everything happens at once. Everything has a season. Growth unfolds over time. This is where you stop rushing your journey, where you trust your process, where you move with patience. Purpose is not just direction, it is timing. Now look at everything. Genesis 1 verse 2, chaos. 1 verse 3, light. 1 verse 4, discernment. 6 to 7, separation. 1 verse 8, structure. 9 to 10, identity. 11 to 12, fruit. 1 verse 13, stability. 1 verse 14, guidance and timing. You now know who you are, what you produce, and where you are going. This is when your path becomes clear, when your decisions become intentional, when your life gains direction. You are no longer wandering. When your inner world is aligned, your life becomes guided. Genesis 1:14 is not just about the sun and moon. It is about your life becoming guided, timed, and aligned. Next verse. Genesis 1:15, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth, and it was so. Surah 24 verse 35 says, Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. The example of his light is like a niche within which is a lamp. Surah 71 verse 16 says, and made the moon therein a light, and made the sun a burning lamp. The pattern in Genesis, light shines onto the earth. In the Quran, light is described as illuminating and guiding. Light is no longer just for you. It now begins to impact what is around you. To give light upon the earth. We defined heaven as inner awareness. Earth as your lived life or expression. Now the light in your awareness begins to shine into your life. What you understand internally begins to show externally. This is when your decisions reflect your clarity. When your lifestyle reflects your awareness. When your actions reflect your understanding, you don't just know, you live it. True understanding is seen in how you live. The next line, light as influence. Light doesn't stay contained, it spreads. When you are aligned, people notice. Environments shift. Conversations change. Your presence begins to carry something. In real life, your calm affects others. Your clarity helps others see. Your growth inspires others. You become a source of light. When light becomes real within you, it begins to shine through you. Next line, and it was so, meaning this is now established. Your life consistently reflects your awareness. Your influence is no longer accidental. Your alignment is now visible and steady. It is who you are. In real life, this is when people come to you for clarity. When your life becomes an example. When your presence feels different. You are no longer just growing, you are impacting. Growth becomes purpose when it begins to help others. Family, Genesis 1:15 is not just about light shining. It is about you becoming a reflection of clarity. You becoming a carrier of understanding. You becoming a source of influence. So if your life is starting to affect others, if people are noticing your change, if your presence feels different, don't ignore it. That is your light shining. You were never meant to keep the light to yourself. You were meant to live it. That is why Jesus will say, let your light shine before men, so that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. You were never meant to keep the light to yourself. You were meant to live it. Next verse, Genesis 1:16. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. Surah 25:61 says, blessed is he who has placed in the sky great stars, and placed therein a lamp and a moon giving light. Surah 10:5 says, it is he who made the sun a shining light, and the moon a derived light, and determined for its phases. Surah 71:16 says, and made the moon therein a light, and made the sun a burning lamp. The pattern. In Genesis, we see greater light, lesser light, and stars. In the Quran, we see sun, which is strong light, moon, reflected light, and stars, guidance. Not all light functions the same way, but all light has a role. Let's look at the greater light. The greater light represents strong clarity, direct awareness, conscious leadership, This is when you are clear, when you are confident, when you are leading with understanding. This is where you guide others. You make decisions clearly. You stand firm in your identity. The greater light is when you walk in full clarity. Let's look at the lesser light. The lesser light represents reflected awareness, learning stages, guidance in darker moments. Not every moment is full clarity, but even in uncertainty, in quiet seasons, and in reflection, there is still light. You may not have all the answers, but you still have enough understanding to move forward. Even when you are not at full clarity, you are still guided. Next, the stars also. Stars represent smaller lights, guiding points, and reminders. Not all guidance comes from big moments. Sometimes it comes from small realizations, quiet insights, and subtle confirmations. In real life, a conversation that shifts your thinking, a small idea that changes your direction, a moment of clarity you didn't expect. These are your stars. Guidance doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes it shines quietly. Next line, to rule day and night. Light governs both clarity and uncertainty. You don't only function when everything is clear. You can move in clarity, which is day, and navigate uncertainty, which is night. Both are part of your growth. In real life, when things are clear, you act confidently. When things are unclear, you trust the process. Maturity is knowing how to move in both clarity and uncertainty. This is when you know when to lead, when you know when to reflect, when you know when to observe. You move with wisdom. You don't have to shine the same way in every season, but you must remain a light. Genesis 1:16 is not just about the sun and moon. It is about understanding your level, your role, your influence. So if you feel like sometimes you are leading, sometimes you are learning, sometimes you are just observing, don't be confused. That's the process. Different seasons require different expressions of the same light. And this brings us to the topic of leadership versus learning. Knowing when to lead and when to grow. One of the biggest mistakes people make in life is this: trying to lead when they are still learning, or staying in learning when it's time to lead. And because of that, they feel stuck, confused, and out of alignment. But when you understand the pattern, everything begins to make sense. As we've seen in Genesis 1:16, God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. Not all light functions the same way, but all light has a purpose. So let's look at the greater light, which is the leader. The greater light represents clarity, direction, and responsibility. This is when you know what to do, when you are confident in your path, when you are able to guide others, you make decisions without hesitation. People look to you for clarity. Your presence brings direction. You are leading. Leadership is not control. It is clarity in action. Next is the learner, which is the lesser light. The lesser light represents reflection, growth, and learning stages. This is where you don't have all the answers, where you are still understanding, where you are being shaped. You are asking questions, you are observing, you are growing internally. This is where you are learning. Learning is not weakness, it is preparation. And here is the key: you are both. Sometimes you are the greater light, sometimes you are the lesser light. And that's not confusion, that's growth. You don't lead in every area, and you don't learn in every area. You move between both. Wisdom is knowing where you are strong and where you are still growing. The problem most people face: some people try to lead in areas they don't understand. The result: confusion, frustration, and misdirection. Others also stay in learning too long. The result: hesitation, fear, and stagnation. The question is not, am I a leader or a learner? The real question is, where am I meant to lead? And where am I meant to learn? Let's look at some examples. In your career, you may lead in your expertise, but learn in a new skill. In relationships, you may lead in emotional stability, but learn in communication. In life, you are always both. You don't have to be everything at once. You just have to be honest about where you are. Genesis is not just showing you light, it is showing you roles. Roles that shift, roles that grow, roles that evolve. So if you feel like sometimes you are confident, sometimes you are unsure, sometimes you are leading, sometimes you are learning, don't resist it. That's the process. You grow when you embrace both your light of clarity and your light of learning. Now, let's bring this down to real life. Because one of the biggest questions people ask is, what am I meant to do? Am I on the right path? Why do I feel stuck in my career? And sometimes it's not that you are lost. It's that you don't know what stage you are in. Genesis 1:16 says, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. There are two modes of growth: leading and learning. And both are necessary for purpose. Let's look at signs you are the greater light. You are in a leading season when you have clarity in what you do, when you can solve problems confidently, when others come to you for guidance, when you feel aligned in your work. This is where you are experienced in your field, where you can mentor others, where your decisions feel natural. You are not guessing, you are operating from understanding. When you have clarity, it's telling you it's time to lead. Signs you are the lesser light. You are in a learning season when you feel unsure, when you are developing new skills, when you are asking questions, when you are growing but not yet confident. This is starting a new career, switching industries, learning a new skill. This is not failure. This is preparation. When you feel uncertain, it's time to learn. Why people feel stuck? Most people struggle because they try to lead too early, pretending to know what they don't, avoiding learning, and rushing the process. Or they stay in learning too long, overthinking, doubting themselves, afraid to step forward. Both create frustration. The real question: stop asking, what is my purpose? Start asking, am I meant to lead right now or learn right now? Purpose is not a title. It is how you function in your current stage. And here's the truth: you can lead in one area and still be learning in another. For instance, you lead in your job, but learn in business. You lead in skills, but learn in communication. That's balance. Family, your career is not supposed to feel the same at every stage. Sometimes you are growing. Sometimes you are guiding. Both are part of your purpose. So if you feel unsure, don't panic. You might just be in a learning season. And if you feel clear, don't shrink. It might be time to lead. Your purpose becomes clear when you understand your current stage. Next verse, Genesis 1 verse 17. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. Surah 6 verse 97 says, "And it is he who placed for you the stars that you may be guided by them through the darkness of the land and sea." The pattern in Genesis, light is set in a place. In the Quran, stars are placed for guidance. Light is not random. It is positioned with purpose. God sets them. Set equals positioned, placed, assigned. Your light is not meant to shine everywhere. It is meant to shine somewhere specific. In real life, this is when you find your space, when you find your environment, when you find where you function best. Not every place is your place. Purpose is not just what you do. It is where you are placed to do it. In the firmament, firmament equals structured awareness. Your positioning comes after clarity, growth, and structure, not before. This is why rushing into things leads to confusion. Why waiting until you are ready brings alignment. You are placed when you are prepared. Positioning follows preparation. Next line, to give light upon the earth. Your purpose is not just for you. It is to impact your environment, your work, your relationships. Your growth is meant to be expressed. In real life, your job becomes your platform. Your business becomes your expression. Your presence becomes influence. You are placed to affect something. You are placed where your light is needed. This is when you find the right job, when you enter the right environment, when you connect with the right people. Things begin to align. When you are in the right place, your light naturally works. Genesis 1:17 is not just about stars in the sky. It is about placement, purpose, and alignment. So if you feel out of place right now, don't force it. You may still be in preparation. But when you are ready, you will be positioned. You don't find your place by forcing it. You step into it when you are ready. Now, let's look at purpose and placement. Why you feel out of place and how to find where you belong. One of the most frustrating feelings in life is this: feeling out of place. You are doing things, you are trying, you are showing up, but something doesn't feel right. And you start asking, why isn't this working? Am I on the wrong path? What is my purpose? But what if the issue is not your ability, but your placement? Genesis 1:17 says, "And God set them in the firmament to give light upon the earth." The light didn't just exist, it was placed. Meaning, it's not enough to have potential. You must be in the right environment. What is purpose? Purpose is what you do naturally, what you are built for, what flows from your identity. In real life, your skills, your gifts, your way of thinking, that's your light. Purpose is what you carry. What is placement? Placement is where your purpose works best, where your light is effective, and where your gifts are needed. In real life, the right job, the right environment, the right people, that's your position. Placement is where your purpose makes sense. Why people feel stuck? Most people struggle because they have purpose, but wrong placement. Talented, but in the wrong job. Capable, but in the wrong environment. Or placement, but no clarity of purpose. Doing something, but it doesn't align. Working, but it feels empty. That's why it feels off. When purpose meets placement, everything changes. Work feels natural. Growth feels aligned. Effort produces results. Things begin to flow. Alignment happens when what you carry meets where you are placed. Signs you are out of place. You may be out of place if everything feels forced, if you are constantly drained, if your effort doesn't produce results, if you feel disconnected from what you do. It's not always lack of ability. It may be wrong placement. Signs you are in the right place. You are in the right place when things begin to flow, when your strengths are useful, when your work feels natural, when you feel aligned, not perfect, but aligned. Here's the truth. You don't always start in the right place. Sometimes you learn, you grow, you discover before you are positioned correctly. Preparation comes before placement. Examples: you start in one job, you gain skills, then you move, you find better alignment, then you grow, you step into purpose. That's the process. Family, you are not lost. You may just be in transition because your light is meant for a specific place. So if things don't feel right now, don't panic. You may still be finding your placement. But when it aligns, you will know. You don't become powerful by doing more. You become effective by being in the right place. Next verse, Genesis 1 verse 18. And to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. Surah 7 verse 54 says, Indeed, your Lord is Allah, who created the heavens and the earth. He covers the night with the day, chasing it rapidly, and the sun, the moon, and the stars are subjected by his command. The pattern in Genesis, light rules day and night. In the Quran, sun and moon are subjected and ordered. This is not just light existing. This is light governing. To rule over day and night. Rule equals govern, manage, have authority over. You are no longer controlled by your emotions, your thoughts, and your circumstances. You now manage them. Before, you reacted to everything. Your mood controlled you. Situations dictated your actions. Now, you choose your response. You stay grounded. You remain steady. Growth becomes mastery when you are no longer controlled, but in control. Day and night, meaning both clarity and uncertainty. You can now function in clarity, which is day, and uncertainty, which is night, without losing yourself. When things are clear, you move. When things are unclear, you stay grounded. You don't panic anymore. Mastery is being steady in both clarity and uncertainty. Next line, divide the light from darkness. This is reinforcement, continual discernment. You no longer confuse truth with fear, clarity with emotion, alignment with pressure. You see clearly. You don't entertain confusion. You don't go back to what you've outgrown. You stay aligned. Authority begins when confusion no longer has control over you. Next line, and God saw that it was good. This is final confirmation. This is not saying you are God, but truth within you recognizes alignment. You now know you are stable. You are grounded. You are aligned without needing validation. This is when you don't get easily shaken. When you don't lose yourself under pressure. When you stay aligned no matter what. You are now operating from mastery. You know you've grown when what used to control you no longer does. Genesis 1:18 is not just about ruling the day and night. It is about you governing your mind, managing your emotions, and living with authority. So, if you've reached a place where you don't react like before, where you stay grounded, where you remain steady, don't overlook it. That is mastery. True power is not controlling others. It is mastering yourself. Next verse, Genesis 1:19. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Evening and morning. Evening represents process, uncertainty, growth. Morning represents clarity, understanding, and light. Every level of mastery came through learning, mistakes, adjustments, and realization. You didn't skip the process, you went through it. Think about it. You weren't always this calm. You weren't always this clear. You weren't always this grounded. You grew into it. Mastery is built through moments you had to grow through. Next line, the fourth day. What does 4 represent? It represents stability, foundation, and structure. This is important. The fourth day represents mastery becoming stable and consistent. Not temporary, but established. This is when your reactions stay controlled, where your clarity stays consistent, and where your peace remains steady. You are no longer going back and forth. Growth becomes real when it becomes stable. Let's look at the journey so far. Day 1, awareness, light appears. Day 2, structure, separation. Day 3, identity plus fruit, visible change. Day 4, guidance plus placement plus authority, now stabilized. You are no longer fluctuating. What this means for you: this is the stage where your growth is consistent, where your discipline is natural, where your awareness is stable. You don't have to force it anymore. This is when you don't react like before, when you don't go back to old patterns, when you don't lose yourself under pressure. Not sometimes, consistently. You know you've grown when your old self no longer shows up. Genesis 1:19 is not just marking time. It is marking transformation becoming stable. So, if you've reached a place where your peace is consistent, where your clarity is stable, and where your reactions are controlled, take a moment to recognize it. This stage is complete. What you practice has now become who you are. Next verse, Genesis 1 verse 20. And God said, "Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven." Surah 24 verse 45 says, Allah has created every living creature from water. Some of them crawl on their bellies, some walk on 2 legs, and some walk on 4. The pattern in Genesis: life emerges from water, movement begins, birds fly. In the Quran, life originates from water, creatures move, birds are sustained. This is life in motion. Let the waters bring forth life. As we've seen, Waters equal thoughts, emotions, and inner depth. Now, they bring forth life, meaning your inner world is no longer chaotic. It now produces living expression. Your ideas become actions. Your emotions become wisdom. Your inner growth becomes visible movement. You are no longer just stable. You are alive in your expression. When your inner world is aligned, your life begins to move. Next line, the moving creatures. Creatures in water represent expressions within your inner world. Your thoughts and emotions are now active, purposeful, and directed. Not random anymore. Your ideas turn into action. Your mindset produces results. Your decisions create movement. You are no longer stagnant. Growth becomes real when it begins to move. Next line, birds that fly. Birds represent elevated thoughts, vision, and perspective. You are now able to think higher, see beyond your current situation, and operate from a bigger perspective. You think long term. You see opportunities others don't. You move with vision. You are no longer limited to survival thinking. Transformation gives you a higher way of seeing. Next line, fly above the earth. Above the earth equals above limitations. You are no longer bound by old thinking, old identity, and old limitations. You now operate from expanded awareness. You don't think small anymore. You don't stay stuck in old patterns. You move with vision and clarity. You don't escape life. You rise above limitation within it. Genesis 1:20 is not just about creatures and birds. It is about life flowing through you. Expression becoming natural. Purpose becoming active. So if you feel like you are ready to move, you are ready to act, you are ready to create, don't hold back. This is your next stage. You were not meant to stay in preparation. You were meant to move. Next verse, Genesis 1:21. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly, after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Surah 24 verse 45 also says, Allah has created every living creature from water. Some of them crawl on their belly, some walk on 2 legs, and some walk on 4. The pattern. In Genesis, life emerges and multiplies. In the Quran, life originates and diversifies. This is no longer just movement, this is expansion. Brought forth abundantly. Abundantly equals increase, overflow, multiplication. When you stay consistent, growth begins to expand beyond your effort. Your work starts gaining traction. Your efforts begin to produce results. Things begin to grow faster. Not forced, but natural. Consistency leads to multiplication. Next line, living creatures. Living creatures equals active results. Your efforts now produce visible outcomes, real impact, and tangible results. This is where your ideas become projects, where your work becomes results, where your growth becomes impact. It's alive. What you've been building is now producing life. Next line, after their kind, the law of multiplication. What you are reproduces. Your life multiplies. What you consistently do, what you consistently think, and what you consistently are. Discipline leads to more discipline. Clarity leads to more clarity. Growth leads to more growth. It compounds. What you consistently are, your life will multiply. Next line, great creatures. Not just small growth, large visible expansion. Over time, your impact grows. Your influence increases. Your results expand. This is where your business scales, where your career advances, where your influence grows. It becomes bigger than you started. Small beginnings lead to great expansion. What you stay consistent with will eventually multiply. Genesis 1:21 is not just about creatures. It is about your life reaching a point where growth expands, where effort compounds, where results increase. So, if you've been consistent, if you've been showing up, if you've been doing the work, don't stop now, because multiplication is coming. The stage you are in now is building the expansion that's ahead. Next verse, Genesis 1:22. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. Surah 24 verse 45 also says, Allah has created every living creature from water. Surah 42 verse 11 says, he created for you mates and multiplied you thereby. The pattern in Genesis, blessing plus multiplication. In the Quran, creation plus increase. This is no longer just growth. This is intentional expansion. And God bless them. Blessing equals empowerment to increase. Blessing is not just something given. It is something activated. It means capacity has been unlocked. Growth is now supported. Expansion is now possible. In real life, This is when things begin to work, when opportunities increase, when growth becomes easier. You are now in the flow of increase. A blessing is the ability to grow without force. Next line, be fruitful. Fruitful equals producing results. You are no longer just learning or preparing. You are now producing. Your work shows results. Your growth becomes visible. Your effort produces outcomes. It's no longer hidden. Fruitfulness is when your growth becomes visible. Next line, multiply. Multiply equals increase beyond your effort. This is where results expand, where impact increases, where growth compounds. Not linear, exponential. This is where one opportunity leads to many, where one step leads to expansion, where one idea grows into something bigger. It multiplies. Multiplication is what happens when consistency meets alignment. Next line, fill the waters. Waters equals inner world, influence. Your growth now fills your environment, your space, and your influence. It spreads. This is where your work reaches more people, where your impact expands, where your presence grows. You are no longer limited. Next line, let fowl multiply. Birds equals vision or higher thinking. Your ideas now expand, elevate, and influence. This is where your thinking becomes bigger, where your vision expands, where your possibilities increase. You think differently now. Expansion begins in the mind before it appears in life. Genesis 1:22 is not just about creatures multiplying. It is about your life reaching a stage where growth expands naturally, where results increase consistently, where influence spreads. So, if you are starting to see growth, if things are beginning to expand, if your efforts are multiplying, don't shrink. This is your expansion stage. You were not just created to grow, you were created to multiply. Next verse, Genesis 1:23. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. Evening and morning, as we've seen, evening represents process, uncertainty, and growth. Morning represents clarity or understanding. Every level of expansion you just entered came through action, consistency, patience, and discipline. It didn't happen overnight. You worked through confusion. You stayed consistent. You pushed through uncertainty. And now clarity has come. Every result you see was once a process you had to trust. The fifth day. What does 5 represent? It represents grace, flow, or movement with ease. This stage represents growth becoming easier and more natural, not forced, but flowing. This is when things start working, when opportunities begin to appear, when effort feels lighter. You are no longer struggling to grow, you are flowing in it. What once required effort now begins to flow. What did Jesus say? Out of your belly shall flow rivers of living water. Next verse, Genesis 1:24. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so. Let the earth bring forth. We defined earth as physical life, reality, daily expression. Now, the earth produces life. What was internal is now fully manifesting externally. This is where your ideas become real, where your plans become tangible, where your vision becomes something you can see. This is execution. What you've been building internally is now becoming real. Next line, living creatures. Living creatures equals real results, active systems. Your growth now produces systems, structures, and outcomes. This is where your business becomes structured, where your career becomes stable, and where your life becomes organized. It's no longer just movement, it's established. Growth becomes powerful when it becomes structured. Next line, cattle. Cattle equals what is cultivated and managed. These represent discipline, consistency, and controlled habits. In real life, your routines, your daily habits, your systems of growth. This is what you maintain. What you manage consistently sustains your growth. Next line, creeping things. Creeping things equals small, subtle behaviors. These represent habits you barely notice, small patterns, and subtle actions. In real life, they represent small decisions, daily choices, and unnoticed habits, but they matter. Small things shape big outcomes. Next line, beasts of the earth. Beast equals strong drives, powerful forces. These represent your ambition, your desire, your drives. In real life, your hunger to succeed, your motivation, your push to grow. These must be directed, not uncontrolled. Your drive must be guided, not left unchecked. Next verse. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Surah 24 verse 45 says, Allah has created every living creature from water. Surah 67 verse 3 says, you do not see in the creation of the most merciful any inconsistency. The pattern in Genesis, everything produced after its kind. In the Quran, creation is consistent and ordered. This is about alignment plus consistency plus correctness. After his kind. After its kind equals reproduction according to nature. What you produce reflects what you are. There is consistency. This is where your habits produce matching results, where your mindset produces matching outcomes, where your systems reflect your identity. Nothing is random. Your life produces what you consistently are. The full alignment. Everything now functions properly, stays consistent, produces as expected. This is when your habits align with your goals, where your systems produce results, where your life reflects your identity, where your routine works, where your structure supports you, and where your growth is stable. No more chaos. Next line, and God saw that it was good. Again, not saying you are God, but truth recognizes alignment. You know when things are working, when things are aligned, when things are correct. You feel it. You know you are aligned when what you built works consistently. Success is not built once, it is refined continuously. Next verse, Genesis 1:26. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion. Surah 95 verse 4 says, we have certainly created man in the best of forms. This is the shift from creation to identity to authority. Let us make man. Man here represents the conscious being, the aware self. This is not just physical creation. This is identity formation. This is the moment you become aware of who you are. In real life, this is where you stop drifting, where you begin to define yourself, where you become intentional. This is awakening. Everything changes when you know who you are. In our image, image equals reflection. You are designed to reflect truth, to express awareness, and to embody alignment. Not to live disconnected, but to reflect something higher. This is where you live intentionally, where you act with awareness, and where you align with truth. You reflect it. Your life is a reflection of what you align with. After our likeness, likeness equals nature or character. This is identity becoming internalized. Not just what you do, but who you are. This is where your character reflects your growth, where your behavior aligns naturally, and where your identity is consistent. You've become it. Likeness is when identity becomes your nature. Next line, let them have dominion. Dominion equals authority or governance. This is where you take control of your life. Not control of others, but control of your mind, your actions, your direction. This is where you make decisions intentionally, where you manage your life, and where you move with authority. You are no longer reactive, you are governing. Dominion is mastery over yourself. You cannot rule your life until you know who you are. Genesis 1:26 is not just about man being created. It is about identity revealed, authority activated, and life governed. So, if you've reached a place where you are clear about who you are, where you are intentional in how you live, where you are no longer reacting, don't overlook it. This is dominion. When you know who you are, you stop living by default and start living by design. Next verse, Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. Surah 4:1 says, O mankind, fear your Lord, who created you from a single soul and created from it its mate. Surah 53:45 says, and that he creates the two mates, the male and female. The pattern. In Genesis, image plus male and female. In the Quran, one soul plus dual expression. This is identity expressed in balance. In his own image. Genesis 1:26, identity is revealed. Genesis 1:27, identity is established. This is no longer potential, this is realization. You are not becoming, you are. This is where you know who you are. You live from it. You don't question it. It's stable. Identity becomes powerful when it becomes certain. Notice the repetition of image. It says in his image, in the image. Repetition is emphasis. This is important. Identity is not optional, it is foundational. Everything in your life flows from your identity. Next line, male and female. This is not just biological. It represents duality in balance. Masculine, the active energy. This is action, logic, structure, and direction. Feminine, the receptive energy. This is intuition, flow, creativity, and awareness. Both exist within you. Both must be aligned. When balanced, you act with clarity. You flow with awareness. You are both disciplined and intuitive. When unbalanced, you become too masculine, leading to force or burnout. And you become too feminine, leading to passivity or lack of direction. Balance is key. Wholeness comes from balance within. You are most powerful when you are balanced within yourself. Genesis 1:27 is not just about creation. It is about identity established, wholeness realized, balance expressed. So, if you are at a place where you know who you are, where you are living from it, where you are balanced in how you move, don't overlook it. This is wholeness. You are not incomplete. You are meant to be whole. Next verse, Genesis 1 verse 28. And God blessed them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion. Surah 6 verse 165 says, and it is he who has made you successors upon the earth. And God blessed them. We saw blessing before. Now it returns again. Blessing equals empowerment. This means you now have the capacity to grow, to expand, and to lead. You are equipped. Blessing is the ability to do what you've been prepared for. Be fruitful. Fruitful equals produce results. Your life should now produce, create, and generate, not just exist. In real life, this is where your work produces value, where your life produces impact. You are productive. Fruitfulness is the evidence of alignment. Next line, multiply. Multiply equals expand beyond yourself. This is growth that spreads, impact that increases, results that expand. In real life, this is where your influence grows, where opportunities increase, where impact expands. You are no longer small. Multiplication is impact beyond yourself. Next line, replenish the earth. Replenish equals fill again, restore. You are here to bring value, to restore what is lacking, and to contribute. In real life, this is improving spaces, adding value, making things better. You contribute. You are not just here to take, you are here to add. Next line, subdue it. Subdue equals bring under control. This is self-mastery plus discipline. Not controlling others, but mastering your mind, your habits, and your direction. In real life, this is discipline, focus, and intentional living. You are in control. You cannot lead your life without mastering yourself. Next line, have dominion. Dominion equals authority. This is leadership over your life. Not passive, but intentional. In real life, this is where you make decisions, where you take responsibility, where you lead your life. You govern. Dominion is living your life by design, not by default. You were not just created to exist. You were created to produce, multiply, and lead. Family, Genesis 1:28 is not just instruction. It is activation. It is a call to grow, expand, lead, and contribute. So, if you've reached a place where you know who you are, when you are aligned, when you are ready, don't stay small. Step into it. You were not created to stay hidden. You were created to expand and lead. Next verse, Genesis 1:29. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed and every tree. To you it shall be for meat. Surah 2 verse 29 says, it is he who created for you all of that which is on the earth. Surah 16 verse 10 to 11, he sends down rain and produces crops, olives, dates, and fruits. The pattern. In Genesis, provision already given. In the Quran, provision already created. This is supply plus provision plus sustainability. Next line, I have given you. Notice, it doesn't say I will give you. It says I have given you. Meaning provision is already available. The issue is not lack, but recognition. What does the Bible say? My people perish for lack of knowledge. The issue is not lack, but recognition. Opportunities already exist. Resources already exist. Solutions already exist. You just have to see them. Provision is not missing. It is often unrecognized. Next line, every herb-bearing seed. Seed equals potential. Everything you need begins as a seed. Begins small, simple, and noticed. In real life, these are ideas, skills, and opportunities. They start small, but can grow. What you need may not look big, but it carries potential. Next line, every tree. Tree equals developed result. Seed to tree. Potential to manifestation. In real life, small effort to big result. Idea to business. Habits to transformation. This is growth over time. What starts small grows through consistency. Next line, to you it shall be for meat. Meat equals sustenance. What you grow will sustain you. Your effort becomes your provision. In real life, this is where your skills sustain your income, where your habits sustain your life, where your discipline sustains your growth. It feeds you. What you build will sustain you. Genesis 1:29 is not just about food. It is about provision, resources, and sustainability already given. So, if you've been thinking, I don't have enough, I need more to start, I'm missing something, pause and look again. Because what you need may already be in your hands. Provision is not something you wait for. It is something you recognize and grow. Next verse, Genesis 1 verse 30. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat, and it was so. Surah 11 verse 6 says, there is no creature on earth, but that upon Allah is its provision. Surah 24 verse 45, Allah has created every living creature from water. The pattern. In Genesis, provision for all living things. In the Quran, provision for every creature. This is universal provision plus shared existence. To every beast, every fowl, everything. This is not just humans. This is everything that has life. Provision is universal. No life is excluded. Everyone has access to something. Everyone has a role. Everyone has provision. This removes the idea of only some are provided for. Provision is not selective, it is universal. Next line, wherein there is life. Life equals awareness or existence. If there is life, there is provision. They go together. In real life, your existence is not random. Your presence has support. Your life has access. You are not forgotten. Where there is life, there is provision. Next line, every green herb. Green equals growth. Herb equals provision. Provision is connected to growth. Not stagnation, but where opportunities grow, where resources grow, where results grow. As you grow, provision expands with growth. Genesis 1 verse 29 says, to you. Genesis 1:30 says, to everything, meaning you are not alone in this system. Life is interconnected. Your growth affects others. Your actions impact others. Your provision connects with others. Everything is linked. Your life is part of a larger system, not separate from it. Real life application. In life, sharing, contributing, supporting. In work, collaboration, value creation. Mindset, not competing destructively. Recognizing shared space. This is collective alignment. Genesis 1:30 is not just about food. It is about shared provision, interconnected life, and collective existence. So don't think you are alone. Don't think you are competing with everyone. Don't think you are disconnected. You are part of a system, and that system supports life. Family, let's talk about something real here, which is competition. Because many people feel like they have to fight for everything. They feel like they have to outdo everyone. They feel like they are on their own. And it creates pressure, comparison, and isolation. But what if that was never the design? Genesis 1:30 says, "To every living thing I have given." Provision was not given to one, it was given to all. This means life was designed as a system, not a competition. What is competition? Competition is seeing others as rivals. It sounds like I have to beat them. There's not enough for everyone. If they win, I lose. In real life, this is comparison, pressure, and insecurity. Competition creates tension. Competition is rooted in the belief that there is not enough. Now, what is community? Community is seeing others as part of the system. It sounds like we can grow together. There is enough for all. We can support each other. In real life, this is collaboration, support, and shared growth. Community creates connection. Community is rooted in the understanding that there is enough. The key difference: competition leads to scarcity. Community leads to abundance. Competition says, I have to win alone. Community says, we can grow together. Why people compete? Because of lack mindset, comparison, and insecurity. So they see others as threats instead of allies. Family, the truth is someone else's success does not take away from yours. You don't lose because someone else wins. Let's look at real-life examples of competition and community. At work, competition looks like withholding information. Community is sharing knowledge. In business, competition is trying to outdo others. Community is collaboration. In life, competition is comparison. Community is support. That's the shift. Now let's look at how to shift from competition to community. Step 1, change your view. Stop seeing people as threats. Step 2, add value. Contribute. There's a saying, brighten the corner where you are. Add value. Contribute. Step 3, connect. Build relationships. Growth multiplies when it is shared. You are not here to compete with everyone. You are here to grow within a system. Because once you shift, pressure reduces, connection increases, growth expands. So stop comparing. Stop competing unnecessarily. Stop isolating yourself and connect. Because when you do, everything begins to flow differently. You grow faster together than you do alone. Now let's talk about feeling alone, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and internally. Because you can be surrounded by people, be in relationships, be constantly interacting, and still feel disconnected, unseen, and alone. Life was designed as a connected system, not isolation. What is connection? Connection is feeling aligned and linked. It feels like being understood, being seen, and being in sync. In real life, this looks like meaningful conversations, emotional openness, and shared presence. Connection is life-giving. Connection is the experience of being seen and understood. What is isolation? Isolation is feeling disconnected. It feels like being alone, even with people. It feels like not being understood. It feels like emotional distance. In real life, this looks like surface level interactions, avoiding vulnerability, and staying guarded. Isolation drains you. Isolation is disconnection, even in the presence of others. The key difference: connection leads to openness. Isolation equals protection. Connection says, I allow myself to be seen. Isolation says, I will protect myself. Why people isolate? Because of past hurt, fear of rejection, lack of trust, low self-esteem. So they close off, they avoid depth, they stay guarded and feel alone. Family, the truth is isolation feels safe, but it disconnects you. You protect yourself from pain, but also from connection. So let's look at how to build connection. Step 1, be open. Express yourself. Step 2, be present. Truly engage. Step 3, build trust gradually. Connection begins where you allow yourself to be seen. You are not meant to live in isolation. You are meant to connect, share, and experience life together. So stop hiding. Stop staying closed off. Stop protecting yourself to the point of isolation and open up. Because when you do, life begins to feel different. You don't need more people. You need deeper connection. Next verse, Genesis 1 verse 31. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. and the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Surah 32 verse 7 says, who perfected everything which he created. Surah 50 verse 38 says, we created the heavens and the earth, and no fatigue touched us. The pattern. In Genesis, very good. In the Quran, perfected. This is completion plus satisfaction plus alignment fully realized. God saw everything. Before, it was good. Now everything is very good. This is the full picture, not just part, but the whole. In real life, this is where you step back and see your progress, where you recognize how far you've come, where you see everything working together. This is awareness of completion. Growth becomes powerful when you can see the full picture. Next line, very good. Not just good, but very good. This is alignment, completeness, and wholeness. Nothing missing, nothing broken. In real life, this is where your life feels aligned, where your effort has produced results, and where your systems are working. You feel it. Very good is the result of alignment fully realized. Let's look at the importance of recognizing completion. Many people keep chasing, keep striving, and never pause. They never realize what they've built. But this verse teaches pause, observe, and acknowledge. If you don't recognize what you've built, you will keep feeling like it's not enough. Real life application. In personal growth, recognize your progress. In career, acknowledge your results. In life, appreciate what is working. This builds fulfillment. The balance. You can appreciate where you are while still growing. That is maturity. Completion is not the end. It is recognition of progress. Family. Genesis 1:31 is not just about creation ending. It is about recognizing alignment, seeing the full picture, and acknowledging what is built. So, take a moment. Look at your life. Look at your progress. Look at what you've built and acknowledge it. Because when you do, fulfillment begins. Your life feels complete when you recognize what you've already built. Family, now you've seen it. Genesis 1 is not just about the beginning of the world. It is about the awakening of consciousness, the formation of identity, and the alignment of your life from within. You've seen the pattern. Light separating from darkness. Awareness emerging from confusion. Structure forming from chaos. Identity being revealed. Life being activated. Provision already given. Connection established. And finally, completion. And when it was all seen together, it was called very good. Not because everything was perfect externally, but because everything was aligned internally. So the question is no longer, do you understand Genesis? The real question is, can you see it within yourself? Because this was never just about creation, it was about transformation. And this is why the message has always been the same. The kingdom is within you. Christ is within you. Truth is within you. So stop searching outside and return within. Because when you do, you won't just read the word, you will become it. This was never just a story, it was a mirror.